Hi, I'm Sven, and we're here at GOTO with Adrian Mouat. And Adrian, who are you and what are you doing for a living?
So, as you said, my name's Adrian Mouat. My official title is Chief Scientist at Container Solutions, which is a consultancy specialising in everything sort of microservices and cloud native. I'm currently working on sort of stuff around image tooling with Docker registries and so on.
And you also wrote a book on Docker, right?
So I wrote a book for O'Reilly called Using Docker.
What are the main concerns around container security?
Yeah, so a lot has been made about container security, and I guess it comes from this idea of comparing it to virtual machines and security in virtual machines. So there's the argument that virtual machines are naturally more secure because they have a hypervisor layer. And there's a certain amount of truth to that. But what I would say in most cases is you're going to be using containers with virtual machines. So if you're using containers inside virtual machines, you're only adding another layer of security. You're not removing anything.
Could you give us some guidance or best practices for addressing the typical security issues in containers?
Sure. Probably the biggest one I see is people run their application as root in a container. So if you use one of the base images like Debian or CentOS, it'll be set up so that when you enter it, you're the root user. But if you run an application inside there, what you need to do is change to a different user. So that's either setting a user in a Docker file, or when your container starts up using something like sudo, or there's a tool called GOTO that's a little bit nicer that will change to a different user. And the reason to do that is if, for example, a container breakup was to occur and somebody got out of a container and onto the host, because users aren't namespace by default, they would be root on the host if they're also root in the container. And also simply, if an attacker is root inside a container, then they're going to have more privileges than they should have. It's just inside that container. So it's all about this idea of least privilege.
If I download an official Docker image from Docker Hub, isn't that automatically secure?
Well, it should be a reasonably high level of security if it's an official image. So the official image is the ones that have been vetted by Docker. But they won't have the user will be normally root by default. So if it's a base image like CentOS or Debian, the default user will be root, and you need to change that in your application. The reason it's root is so that you can install software and so on. So in your own image, you'll need to do things that need root privileges, like installing software. But once you've done that, you change the user. There's also application images like Redis and so on. And if you look at those images, they will change to an unprivileged user. So the Redis image runs as the Redis user, for example. And that's actually quite a good tip for picking up security tips if you look at the Docker files for the way the official images have been put together.
And if I don't have an official Docker image, can I still use it? And if yes, how do I verify that I don't use some shady software?
Right. So I guess what you're saying is you found an image in a Docker Hub. It's not an official image, but you'd like to use it.
Exactly.
The first thing I would look at is it an automated build? And if it's an automated build, you'll be able to go and find the Docker file and the source that it was built from, and you can verify it via that. So you can look at what's actually in it. You can also go a step further. You could download that Docker file and the source and build it yourself, and then you're absolutely sure of what's in it. As well as automated builds, people can't just push any images they like up. So I would probably stay away from those, because there could be anything at all in that.
How am I going to deal with passwords or secrets in general if I deploy, let's say, microservices architecture with containers?
Right, so as you said, you don't put it in your image, you've got to add your secrets at runtime. There's a few different ways that people do it. You can use environment variables. I mean, there are some issues with that because they're quite visible. You can put them in files and mount the file. But what's we're moving to, and it's perhaps not quite here yet, but we're moving to sort of secret management with key value stores. So in Docker 113 that's coming out, in Swarm mode, there'll be a secrets API, and you can create secrets using that and map them into containers at runtime. And there's also tools like Vault from HashiCorp that do something very similar, although you'll have to set up the APIs yourself.
How does passing in a secret and accessing the secret store works, and what about the lifetime of these secrets?
Right, so if you're using an external key value store like Vault, there's obviously an issue whereby how does your container authenticate to the Vault? So one way you could do this is with having like a one-time password or a short-lived password that you pass into the container, perhaps as an environment variable. And once it's used that token, it gets access to the secrets that it wants for the rest of its lifetime, like the database token or the API token. And it never needs to access the Vault again. So it just uses that secret once, and then it's no longer good, either because it's expired or because it's only good for one access. Alternatively, you can also use a file system plugin. So the way, for example, the Secrets API in Docker Swarm mode that's coming out works is it will actually place a file with the secrets you have access to in the root of the container. So it never needs to access the key value store at all. It's actually done outside before the container starts. And hopefully there will be, I believe there already is, some attempts at volume plugins for stuff like HashiCorp's Vault that does roughly the same thing.
Okay, thanks Adrian for the interview.
Thank you.